Okay, so for this deep dive, you've given me a pretty interesting book to dig into.
Oh, yeah.
Who Not How
Okay.
by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy.
It's a good one.
Yeah, and just looking at the title, it's kind of already got me thinking differently about how I approach things.
It's a very powerful shift, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. And Dan Sullivan, I mean, he's a giant in the entrepreneurial coaching world.
right.
And Benjamin Hardy, an organizational psychologist and a best-selling author.
Yeah.
So you've got some heavy hitters there
Yeah, for sure.
who've really struck a chord with this idea.
And you know me, always up for a good mental shakeup.
Absolutely.
So let's get into it. This whole who not how idea.
Yeah.
What's the core message here and why should we even care?
Well, the book starts off with this really cool example of Michael Jordan.
Okay.
And you might think, okay, basketball legend,
Right.
epitome of how, right?
Yeah.
Like insane talent, work ethic, the whole package.
The whole 9 yards.
But here's the thing. Even Michael Jordan, with all of his how, needed the right who to reach his full potential.
So you're saying even the Go-8 needed a team.
He did.
Okay, now I'm listening.
Yeah. So early in his career with the Chicago Bulls, Jordan was putting up incredible numbers,
Right.
but they weren't winning championships.
Right.
And it was only when Scottie Pippen came into the picture,
Yeah.
a who, that really complemented Jordan's skills,
Yeah.
that they started winning those championships, those trophies.
So it's not just about individual brilliance. It's
No.
about finding the right people to kind of amplify those strengths and maybe cover up some weaknesses.
Absolutely. And the book actually takes it a step further.
Yeah.
Because even with Jordan and Pippen, they hit another wall.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The Detroit Pistons, I don't know if you remember that, their brutal Jordan rules defense.
I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it wasn't about Jordan finding some new how to get around them.
Right.
It was the arrival of Phil Jackson as the coach, and his introduction of the triangle offense, which really maximized the team's potential, right?
So who not how is really about, stop trying to be a one-man band and build an orchestra instead.
That's a great way to put it. It is about building an orchestra.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of us get stuck, especially in our culture, that really glorifies, the lone wolf entrepreneur.
Self-made, yeah.
Right.
Pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
Exactly. And we get so focused on how can I do this on myself?
Right.
How can I figure it all out? And that can actually really limit our growth.
I think there's this real tendency to put a ceiling on your own potential because you're trying to take on the world.
You limit yourself.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Yourself.
Yeah. And we fall into this trap. We grind away in our own little silos thinking if we just work hard enough,
Right.
we can figure it out.
Right.
But, we can't be experts in everything.
Right.
And by clinging to that how mentality, we miss out on this exponential growth that can come from collaborating.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So how do we break free from this how trap? What are some of the strategies?
Well, they offer some really concrete steps. And one that really resonated with me was the idea of tackling procrastination
Okay.
through a who not how lens.
Interesting, because usually you think about procrastination as just a lack of willpower, right?
Right.
It's a personal failing.
A personal failing.
You're lazy.
Right. But they suggest it might actually be a signal that we're stuck in the how trap.
Okay.
It's our subconscious telling us, hey, you're not equipped to do this alone. You need help.
So instead of beating yourself up for procrastinating, you should be asking, okay, who can help me get this done?
Exactly.
Okay.
And they have a really good example.
Okay.
Remember Lars Ulrich?
The drummer for Metallica.
Yeah.
Of course. Who doesn't love Metallica?
Huge Metallica fan.
Yeah.
Well, when he was starting out, he knew he wanted to form a band, but he wasn't exactly sure how.
So he did something very simple,
Yeah.
but incredibly powerful. He put an ad in a local newspaper.
Okay.
And get this, the ad was radically explicit.
Okay.
It said, drummer looking for other metal musicians to jam with.
That's it, huh?
Yeah.
That's it.
Straight to the point.
And I'm guessing that's how he met James Hetfield.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. And the rest, as they say, is heavy metal history.
Right.
Right. But the takeaway here is that he wasn't vague about his aspiration.
Right.
He didn't just say, looking to make music, hit me up.
Yeah.
He was very clear about his desired outcome of a metal band.
Yeah.
And by being so clear, he attracted the perfect who to make that happen.
Right. So the more specific you are about the goal you're trying to achieve,
Right.
the better you're going to be at attracting the right who.
Absolutely. And they offer a tool to help with that.
Okay.
It's called the impact filter.
The impact filter.
Yeah. And it's a framework for breaking your goals down into their essential components. All right, I'm all about practical tools. So walk me through this impact filter.
Yeah.
How does it work?
Well, it's pretty straightforward. You start by defining the outcomes that you want to achieve.
Okay.
Then you identify the activities that are required to reach those outcomes.
Okay.
And here's the crucial part.
Okay.
You define the traits of the ideal who can help you with those activities.
Okay.
So it's not just about finding anybody. It's about finding the right person for the job.
Yeah.
Someone whose strengths really align with what you need.
So it's almost like creating a blueprint for the ideal person.
Exactly.
Collaborate with.
And the book is full of examples of how finding the right who's
Yeah.
can lead to remarkable results.
Okay. Let's hear a good one.
All right. So there's this story about Richie, a 16-year-old kid who wanted to make some serious cash over the summer.
Okay.
You know, he was thinking about getting a typical teenage job like flipping burgers.
Right.
The classic how approach, right?
Right.
But then he has this conversation with his dad, who, in this case, becomes Richie's who.
Okay.
And his dad suggests a totally different approach. He says, why don't you buy irregular-shaped watermelons from farmers?
Interesting.
The kind that they can't sell to the grocery stores.
Right.
And then resell them at a discount to your neighbors.
Okay. I like where this is going.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Richie takes his dad's advice.
Okay.
And guess what? He ends up making more money in a few days selling these wonky watermelons
Wow.
than he would have all summer flipping burgers.
That's awesome.
Right.
I love that.
Isn't that great? It's so simple, but it's brilliant.
Yeah. And it really highlights how shifting to this who, not how, can really open up these possibilities.
It's about tapping into the expertise of others.
Yeah.
And recognizing that someone might already have a solution to your problem or a way to make your vision a reality.
And the best solution is sometimes the most unconventional one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the book goes on to share another great example.
Okay.
This time with an entrepreneur named Paul Heiss, who was looking to expand his manufacturing operation to India.
Okay. And that sounds like it's full of challenges.
Huge challenges.
Yeah.
You've got different regulations, suppliers, cultural nuances. Try and figure out all the hows would just be overwhelming.
That'd be a nightmare.
It would.
Yeah.
But Heiss, instead of getting bogged down by all that, constantly asked himself, who can help me with this?
Right.
And through that process, he found a local country manager,
Okay.
a scrap steel expert, who knew all about the sourcing materials.
Wow.
And he even tapped into the network of the Indian Consul General to identify ideal locations for plants.
He really had a network of who's.
He did.
And he probably launched it so much faster than he would have ever been able to do on his own.
So much faster.
Yeah.
And that is one of the key takeaways that runs throughout this book. Seeking out the right who's isn't about spending money.
Okay.
It's about investing in your success. It's about leveraging their expertise to free yourself up to do what you do best.
It's about buying your time back.
Yeah.
And freeing up that energy to focus on the things that are really important, the bigger picture.
And that brings us to another crucial resource.
Okay.
Time.
Time. Okay.
And the book makes this case that there's a link between time and money. And they introduce this concept of freedom of time
Okay.
as a pathway to freedom of money.
Now, that's something I can get behind.
Right.
Tell me more about this.
Well, think about it. How often do you find yourself just bombarded with decisions all day long?
Oh my gosh, constantly.
Right.
Yeah.
Big ones, small ones, it's a constant stream.
It really is.
And they call this decision fatigue.
Yeah.
It just drains your energy.
Right.
But more importantly, it limits your capacity for the strategic thinking
Right.
that can lead to those breakthroughs.
Because you're so bogged down in the minutia.
In the weeds.
Yeah, you can't see the forest for the trees.
And the solution, they say, is to delegate the hows to capable who's.
Okay.
So by offloading things that don't require your unique expertise,
Right.
you free up that mental bandwidth for the higher level thinking. The innovation, the strategizing that can really move the needle.
Yeah, it's like clearing the clutter in your brain to allow for those aha moments to come through.
It is.
Okay, I like that.
What kind of examples do they give? Well, they talk about Jacob Monty, a lawyer who decided to stop driving altogether.
Stop driving. How does that work?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Well, he realized that all that time behind the wheel was how he could easily delegate.
Okay.
So he started using ride-sharing services.
Okay.
And in doing so, he reclaimed about 90 minutes a day.
That's a lot of time.
It is.
What did he do with all that time?
Well, he used it strategically. He would prepare for meetings,
Okay.
brainstorm ideas,
Okay.
even connect with potential clients while he was on his way to a meeting.
Wow.
He basically turned his commute into a productivity powerhouse.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And it wasn't just about productivity.
Okay.
Monty said his stress levels went way down.
Interesting.
He showed up to meetings more relaxed,
Well-
focused, prepared,
Right.
all because he eliminated the how of driving
Right.
and delegated that to a who.
It's amazing how just that one small decision can have such a ripple effect
It can.
to your life. Yeah.
And it really highlights a point they make, which is that every decision we make, every task we take on
Yeah.
has an opportunity cost.
Right.
It's not just about the time it takes, it's the energy it consumes.
The mental energy. Yeah.
Exactly.
For sure.
And by letting go of those hows, we create space for the big picture ideas,
Yeah.
the breakthroughs
It's breakthroughs.
that can lead to the growth.
Financial growth.
Yeah. And they have a story about Carl,
Okay.
an entrepreneur who insisted on doing his own website design,
The do-it-yourself trap.
the DIY.
Yeah, been there.
You think you're saving money, but you're really costing yourself time.
You're costing yourself time.
Yeah.
Oh, time.
Well, during a meeting, one of his colleagues casually mentions that he paid someone a very small fee
Okay.
to design his website.
Light bulb moment for Carl, probably.
Carl was shocked by how little his colleague had paid.
Right.
And he realized he had been spending countless hours, weeks even,
Yeah.
trying to cobble together his own websites
Yeah.
when he could have just outsourced the whole thing.
And freed up so much time and energy.
It's a humbling realization. But sometimes we need those wake-up calls, you know,
Ooh.
to realize how much we're losing by clinging to that I can do it all myself mentality.
I think a lot of us fall into that.
We do.
Yeah.
From that point on, Carl embraced who, not how,
Okay.
realizing that by investing in the right people,
Yeah.
he could free up his time
Yeah.
and focus on what he excelled at.
So it's about changing how you look at those payments. It's not an expense, it's an investment
It is an investment.
in your freedom and your growth.
And the book argues that this shift can have a profound impact not just on your finances,
Okay.
but also on your relationships.
Okay.
They call these transformational relationships,
Transformational relations.
where both parties are really invested in each other's growth.
Okay, so this is about more than just delegating tasks.
Much more.
It's about like how we approach our relationships in general.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And they use Joe Polish to illustrate this.
Okay, Joe Polish. Let's hear about it.
Okay. Yeah, so Joe Polish, he's really interesting. I mean, he's built a career on connecting with people and building these mutually beneficial relationships.
Yeah.
And what's striking is that both sides really walk away feeling like they got something valuable out of it.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's not just networking for personal gain.
Yeah.
There's like a deeper generosity at play here.
Absolutely. Yeah, he emphasizes these three key principles when it comes to building these kinds of relationships. The first one is being genuinely drawn to the people that you connect with.
Okay, so like authenticity,
Yeah.
connecting with people who resonate with you on some level, not just collecting business cards.
Not just collecting business cards.
to climb the social ladder.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
The second one is proactively creating value before you ask for anything in return.
Okay.
Joe Polish is all about investing his time and his resources in others.
Yeah.
Because he understands that that genuine generosity often leads to some pretty amazing rewards down the line.
So it's not this transactional, like, quid pro quo approach.
No,
Yeah.
it's about like planting seeds and nurturing those relationships over time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they have a great story in the book about Polish's first encounter with Richard Branson.
Okay.
Instead of like trying to pitch Branson on something or ask for favors, Polish offered this valuable idea for how to promote Branson's foundation, Virgin Unite.
So he came at it as a who with something to offer.
He did.
Not just someone looking to get something.
Exactly.
It's almost counterintuitive these days.
It is, and that approach, it paid off huge. I mean,
Okay.
Branson was so impressed by Polish's generosity
Right.
and his insights that he not only took his advice, but he invited him to speak at his events.
Wow.
Even invited him to visit his private island.
Wow. That's amazing.
Talk about a return on investment, right?
Yeah, all stemmed from that initial act of giving.
Exactly. It really challenges the always be closing mentality.
So the ABC.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it shows that sometimes the best way to, quote unquote, close is to not even focus on closing at all.
Right.
It's about building that connection.
Yeah, yeah.
And that leads us to the third principle,
Okay.
which is about consistently nurturing those relationships.
Okay, so going beyond that initial interaction.
Beyond the interaction
Yeah.
and really cultivating those connections over time.
Yeah, because I think relationships are like a garden.
They are.
They need constant care and attention.
They do.
Yeah.
And Joe Polish is known for his thoughtful gestures,
Okay.
for following up, for expressing gratitude
Yeah, weaving those people into the fabric of your life.
into the fabric of your life.
Yeah.
And that's how you build those truly transformational relationships.
Yeah.
The connections that can open doors and expand your vision.
And even maybe help you, like, discover your purpose.
Absolutely. That's a great segue because the book dives into this concept of freedom of purpose.
Okay.
And I know this is something that you've been really wrestling with lately.
I have.
So how do we find that deeper meaning?
Yeah. How do we find that meaning in the work that we're doing?
Well, they argue that freedom of purpose comes from aligning our work with our passions and our values.
Okay.
And finding the right who's can be crucial in that process.
So it's like these who's become catalysts that help us clarify our vision.
Exactly.
And then pursue the goals.
Yes.
Yeah.
They give an example of J.R. Tolkien,
Okay.
author of Lord of the Rings, and
Uh,
C.S. Lewis, wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. Now, I always just thought they were kind of contemporaries working in the same genre.
yeah, me too.
But it turns out they were much more than that.
Okay.
They were really close friends, and they were part of this literary group called the Inklings.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah. And they would share their work and offer each other feedback.
Oh, wow. So they had this built-in support system
They did.
of who's to help them kind of push their creative boundaries.
Yeah, and the book highlights how crucial this was,
Really?
especially for Tolkien. I mean, he faced a lot of self-doubt,
Real.
and he might never have finished The Lord of the Rings without C.S. Lewis's constant encouragement.
Wow. One of the most beloved fantasy series almost didn't happen.
I know, right? And the support went both ways.
Okay.
Lewis, who had actually abandoned his Christian faith, credits Tolkien,
Okay.
along with another Inkling, Hugo Dyson, with helping him rediscover his belief system.
Wow. So they were each other's who's on this really deep level.
They were.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And that became a major theme in his writing.
Right. Right.
And the book shares another great example of how finding the right who's can expand our vision and purpose. It's a story about Lee Richter, a veterinarian who owned an animal hospital with her husband and a woman named Chrissy.
Okay.
So Lee's husband, Gary, was speaking at an event run by this leadership expert. And Lee was super impressed by Chrissy, the woman who was managing the whole thing.
Okay.
She's just like so competent, so organized, clearly passionate about animals.
So it wasn't just about Chrissy's skills.
Right.
It was her alignment with their values.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even though there wasn't like a job opening, Lee knew
Okay.
that Chrissy would be an amazing asset to their team.
So she saw Chrissy as a who,
Yes,
even without a defined role.
exactly.
Okay.
And within a year, Chrissy was promoted to chief marketing officer of all 9 of their companies.
Wow. So she not only thrived, she helped shape their overall vision and purpose.
Chrissy brought this fresh perspective
Right.
and this contagious energy,
Okay.
and Lee finally felt confident to pursue this moonshot project
Okay.
that she had been kind of dreaming of in this animal healthcare space.
So the right who's help you achieve your goals, but they give you that confidence
Yes.
to dream bigger
They do.
and really pursue those things that are meaningful to you.
And speaking of unlocking potential,
Okay.
the book tells this inspiring story about Jan Coe,
Jan Kelly. Okay.
janitorial services,
Okay.
and their unique approach to their employees.
Okay. What makes them so unique?
Well, Jan Coe is this really successful cleaning company
Okay.
in Cincinnati.
Okay.
But what sets them apart is their commitment to their employees' well-being.
So they view their employees as who's.
As who's?
Not just,
Not cogs in the machine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Mary and Tony Miller, the owners,
Okay.
they really believe that their employees are the key to their success.
Right.
They provide transportation assistance, continuing education opportunities,
Oh.
and they go above and beyond to recognize
Okay.
and reward outstanding performance.
So they've built this culture where the employees feel valued.
Yes.
Yeah.
And empowered to grow.
And I bet the result is they have really low turnover.
They do. In an industry known for high turnover,
Right.
they have an 85% employee retention rate.
That's amazing.
It is. And the book uses this powerful analogy.
Yeah.
They tell the story of these 3 bricklayers who are asked what they're doing.
Okay.
The first bricklayer says, I'm laying bricks.
Okay.
The second one says, I'm building a wall.
Okay, so we're already seeing a different level of thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The third bricklayer, with a gleam in his eye, says, I'm building a cathedral.
Ah, connecting to a bigger vision.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by fostering that culture of purpose and growth, Junkoa has enabled its employees to see themselves as, quote unquote, cathedral builders.
Oh, look.
Right. They're not just cleaning toilets.
Right.
They're contributing to something meaningful.
It's beautiful how who not how can not only transform a company, but also the lives of its employees.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it creates this wonderful, cycle.
It does.
Where everybody benefits.
And that brings us back to the authors themselves.
Okay.
Because the book concludes with a glimpse into the journey of who not how and its impact on Dan Sullivan's own business, Strategic Coach.
Strategic Coach.
Yeah.
Okay, so how has that evolved over time?
Yeah, so Strategic Coach, it's this coaching program for entrepreneurs. And it's gone through some pretty interesting changes over the years.
Yeah. In what way?
Well, initially, Sullivan really focused on that one-on-one coaching,
Okay.
but he realized something.
What's that?
He saw the power of the group.
The group dynamic.
Group dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he transitioned to more of a group coaching model, because it just created this much richer experience for everyone.
It's like he applied who not how to his own business, right? Instead of just him, the expert, delivering it all.
Right.
He realized that by bringing in other who's,
Yeah.
it would become so much more powerful.
It's amazing.
Yep.
And the book really emphasizes this, They've created this environment where their clients,
Right.
the entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
can learn from each other.
Yeah.
They can challenge each other's assumptions, support each other's growth.
So you're not just getting coaching from Sullivan, you're getting it from this whole network of people.
That's right.
That's really cool.
And it's really what the book challenges us to do, is to apply this to our own lives.
To step back and ask, who can help me do this?
Yes.
Instead of getting lost in the how.
Instead of getting lost in the how.
They make a really good point that, all the entrepreneurs, all the successful entrepreneurs
Right.
have really leveraged the power of who's to get where they are,
Right.
even if maybe they didn't even realize it.
Whether they realize it or not.
Yeah, right. Even those people who seem like they're totally self-made,
Yeah.
they still had mentors.
They had a team.
Yeah, advisors, partners, investors.
They had a team.
A network of who's.
It's a humbling reminder that none of us are truly self-made.
Or not.
And it's not just about, achieving this external measure of success.
Uh-huh.
It's really about expanding our sense of purpose and freedom.
It's about designing a life where you're not constantly burdened by the hows.
You're free to focus on the who's and the why's.
The who's and the why's.
That really matter.
Exactly. And they wrap it up. They have this powerful call to action,
Okay.
which is, set a goal,
Okay.
a big, ambitious goal,
Okay.
and then ask yourself, who can help me do this?
Such a simple question,
It is.
but it changes your whole perspective.
It really does.
Yeah.
And that's really what this whole deep dive has been about, right?
It's about challenging how we think
Yeah,
and moving beyond that limiting how mentality
absolutely.
and embracing the power of who.
It is.
So as we wrap up here,
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what's one how in your life
Well, that's a good one.
that you've been really struggling with,
Yeah.
you've been trying to kind of muscle through on your own?
Yeah,
What if you could delegate that to a really capable who?
that's powerful. Yeah. What opportunities would that open up? What could you do? What would you finally have the time and energy for? I think it's time to step out of our silos, embrace collaboration, and unlock that freedom that comes with asking who, not how. It's a simple shift in thinking, but it can have a huge impact on your life. So go out there, find your who's, and start building something amazing together.